State Farm's Drive Safe and Save can save you up to 30% on your car insurance, but is it worth them tracking your driving habits to get that savings? In this video, we're going to go over some of the reviews, some of the data, and what you're giving up if you're looking at doing the Drive Safe and Save, as well as go over how to install it and use the program and get the best ratings. Some people that have used it said it was too tiny of a discount, it wasn't worth the trade-off, but we're going to break down what it tracks and what it really changes as far as your driving habits, and then also, is it smarter just to shop other companies without having the discount? If you are shopping for different car insurance and you're looking to compare rates with different companies, I'll put a link in the description below where you can fill out a quote and you can work with one of the independent agents. They're able to shop multiple companies, so you can check State Farm and Allstate and Geico and Progressive and a lot of those different options that have devices like this. But also sometimes you don't want the device and they're going to give you the better deal for the right coverage. That independent agent can shop all those companies in one swoop, so you don't have to worry about calling all the different options. Again, that's in the link in the description below. So what really is the Drive Safe and Save, and what is it not? It's essentially what's called a telematics. It's a program that uses driving data. It's essentially your mileage. It's calculating the discount usually at your renewal. And with State Farm, it is at your renewal. So you go through the process of them watching your driving habits. Are you braking fast? Are you accelerating fast? What time of the day are you driving? All of the habits. Are you touching your phone while you're driving? Things like that. They're going to have an app that you're going to download and use, and it's going to give you advice. So it's actually a little bit of a neat tool that's going to help you learn to drive safer and figure out what type of discount would apply to your scenario for the type of driving that you personally do. It's really simple to sign up. You just tell your agent, they're going to enroll you in it, and you usually get a 10% discount right off the bat. What it's not is just a quick, cheap discount. It's not a button that you're going to push. Yes, it feels like you're getting an instant discount, but for those that aren't good drivers, that 10% will come off at that next renewal. So if you don't meet the program that we're going to talk about, then you're not necessarily going to want to set up a product like this. What it's not is not a guarantee to get in cheap insurance. It's not a button that you can push where it gives you a savings. It will feel like it because you get that 10% off initially and it's like, okay, I already got it. However, if you're not a fit for this, and we'll go over those here in a couple seconds, then you're not necessarily going to get that 10%. It's going to come off later on, so it's not a guarantee to have the best pricing. If you are in heavy traffic, if you frequently brake, if you're like me and you just like to accelerate fast, if you've got a turbo in your car and you just like to push that turbo button and you're going, if you're often distracted, if you touch your phone while driving, this for sure is not the program. It's not worth your time to even test it or even figure it out. On top of it, if you have a lot of family members and one or a couple of those family members who are on your policy that you need to get involved and actually do this, then it's also not going to be a fit. So if you have a large audience, then you may just want to shop different options to see what other pricing you can get with other companies. Not that you can't get a good deal with State Farm, it's just the Drive Safe and Save at this point wouldn't be a fit for you. Well, Mark, how much can I save? The typical savings is up to 30%. So if you are a really good driver, you can get a pretty good discount compared to what you're currently paying. Now, most people understand 30% is the top tier, and we pretty much understand that almost nobody or very few people are going to hit that top tier. But in realness, you're going to save roughly between 10 and 20%. That's the more common number. In most cases, people will save about $150 every 6 months just having that tracking device installed on your phone. And there's a little thing that you put in your vehicle, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. So how do I actually use the device? So you're essentially going to install what's called the State Farm mobile app. You're going to enroll in the system, so it's called the Drive Safe and Save. You'll accept the terms and condition. Again, we'll go over those in just a moment and what you're actually giving up. You're going to confirm your information, your email, your address. You're going to connect what's called a Bluetooth beacon. It's honestly just a little sticker. You're going to stick it in your windshield. They understand that you technically, some cars don't have a spot for that to go, so it's not required, but it's highly recommended. So it's not as accurate if you don't have that little mobile beacon where they can technically somehow satellite view you and all the things, but they're going to actually take a deep dive into it. It's going to connect that mobile beacon to your app. So it's going to give you the most accurate knowing that you are or aren't the driver in some scenarios. It may prompt you to enter your odometer, although they don't technically force you to plug in a device into your car or check the odometer reading, but that may be an option. It depends on the state that you're in. navigation. They're also going to have you enable, and there's permissions that they have to allow. So it's going to allow the motion or the physical activity that your sensor in your phone can actually take, because it's going to determine how fast you're speeding and how quick you're slowing down. Those pieces are part of that process, and you have to authorize that. On top of it, the navigation, they're going to use the navigation from your phone to determine where you're going and all of those pieces. The bigger piece is if you have multiple drivers and multiple cars, you do want to make sure that you set it up correctly, that each device is paired to each car that's being driven, because that's going to give you the most accurate data of who's driving what car, how many miles they're driving, all of those pieces that are going to give you that best discount. Now, on top of it, you're going to want to check the app. So every so often, once you've got installed, you're driving, the discounts are active. Every so often, I'm kind of an everyday type of person. I got to know what's happening now. And every couple days, every week or so, you're going to want to look at the app. It's going to give you recommendations like, hey, you could have braked better here, or you could have done this better here. And it's going to tell you some of the things that you need to improve. It gives you time to improve that so that you can improve your driving habits and then get that better discount that they're offering. And yes, you can say that you are the passenger. So if the app is tracking incorrectly and you're the passenger and your friend is driving over hills and bumps and driving fast and stopping fast and they're doing all the things that you don't technically do, then you can go into the app and say, I was not the driver at that occurrence. I'm just the passenger, so that it's not going to track your driving habits and count that against you. Okay, Mark, but what does it track? There's 6 pieces that State Farm is looking at with their Drive Safe and Save. They want to know the acceleration. That's the rapid speed or slow speed that you're accelerating. The faster, the worse. So if you have normal speeds, you're good. They want to look at braking. So how frequently you stop, how hard you stop, and if you're constantly in stop and go traffic. So if you're in heavy traffic, there's a higher risk of you having claims, having accidents, things like that, where it's not always your fault, but you having to stop and go puts you at a higher risk. So if that's the case, it may not give you the best discount, but again, you're not really losing anything besides the 10% that you got already if you aren't a good fit. In those cases, you'll find out quickly, because it'll give you those warnings that you're stopping a lot, and then you can understand that it's probably not going to give you the best deal. Pretty rare, but they're actually looking at cornering, and that's something that State Farm does that a lot of the other apps don't do. When you compare them to the other companies out there, the cornering matters with State Farm. So how sharp you're driving, if you have a really fast car, a really low to the ground car, turning sharply is normal for you, but in these cases, it may go against you if you're cornering too sharply. And the opposite goes if you're just normal, if you just typically drive, it's going to give you bonus points for not turning really sharply or causing lean or causing issues where it would not normally be a thing. The rare piece that State Farm does that a lot of companies don't do is speed. It does matter with State Farm. They want to know that you're not commonly going too fast or exceeding the speed limit. That's one of the things that I'm already out. It's not going to be a fit for me. No, I'm pretty decent, but you can see what leeway it gives you as far as speed goes. They're not necessarily going to heavily rate that, because they do understand that speeding is pretty common, but for those that do speed constantly, it's not necessarily going to be the best device for you to try. Again, it's worth the shot to try it if you're looking to do something to just see if there's an option for you. And you're already with State Farm, you might as well check the discount just to see if it's a fit. The 5th one, and the most common, is going to be distractive driving. So they're going to look at if you're touching your phone. Now, if you have a Bluetooth device, in most cases, pretty much all these devices don't necessarily rate against you if you're switching the phone or the song on your Bluetooth device. But if you're touching the phone, or if you have kids that play on the phone and watch videos on the phone, then that's not going to be good. Honestly, for those scenarios, it's not worth doing it at all, because if the phone is bouncing around and moving, it's touching while you're driving, it's going to count it as distracted driving. And honestly, that's the #1 cause, or one of the bigger causes for car accidents. So having that scenario, it's not worth doing if you constantly have the phone being touched while driving. Yeah, but Mark, I'm doing my navigation. You're still not supposed to navigate your car while you're driving down the road. I get it. Everybody does it. However, if it's Bluetooth to a computer or Bluetooth to a tablet that's in your car, that's a different scenario. It doesn't necessarily track those scenarios versus you touching the phone to change the navigation. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have been dinged by having a Bluetooth device connected to this. And the 6th piece is the mileage, and this is where the actual discount technically could hurt you. So for those that are worried about mileage, if you already are getting a low mileage discount, if you're driving less than 5,000 miles a year, you should be getting some sort of discount. There's a ton of companies out there that give low mileage discounts, and that's a very common one now. In this case, if you're using this device, it's tracking the miles that you're driving. If you drive more than they expected and you're on that cusp of between having a really good discount for low mileage and not, in these scenarios where you're already getting the discount, it's usually based off of what you said. Yeah, they could send you a mileage verification letter that you have to take a picture or send a new verification of the mileage and they'll track that. And yes, a lot of companies now use when you get oil changes and they can track it that way. But in most cases, they don't ever actually ask for that information. In this case, because you've activated the device, your mileage may be more. If you are driving more than your expected miles, you could see an increase on your premium. So not only do you lose the 10% if you're bad or you get whatever discount they give you, you could pay more because of the mileages that you're driving. The same goes for the opposite. If you drive less miles and they realize you're a low mileage driver, then you can talk to the agent to say, hey, I noticed I'm driving lower miles than I thought. Maybe I'll get an additional discount, and they can apply that to your policy. So how does this work over time? What is the discount going to do in the long run? The key piece is that it's a renewal-based discount. Your discount is calculated at the renewal, so it could go up or down depending on that because, again, you got that 10% off already, and if it's bad, then you lose it. If it's good, then you get more. In most cases, I would expect to get more if you are in the scenarios where you're not constantly stopping and going, things like that we just talked about. But what I have seen in the past, and this isn't just State Farm, with most customers, is if you're not using the device, if you're constantly turning your phone off, if it doesn't get the right mileage or at least get some mileage to track, you can't just do 10 miles and turn it off. Usually in most cases, you have to go several hundred miles in order for it to activate and actually get enough data to give you the right pricing. So if you don't activate it, you don't put the sticker in there and you said you were, all of those things, if you're not doing that, you'll just be opted out of the program and then you'll lose that initial discount. Might, again, feel like you lost something big, but you never had it in the first place. It's just they're removing it for that specific scenario because of not activating the device. Okay, so we need to talk about the pros and the cons. So the first pro is the participation discount. Just enrolling gives you the discount. I honestly like that because on average, you're gonna see a 10 to 20% discount. So you're already gonna get that and it's likely gonna apply. And then you may get more even after that on the renewal. So you feel good because you got it initially, and then you feel even better if you do good in the program and now you've got even a better deal. The other pro is it's gonna show you your driving habits. So you can realize, oh my gosh, I'm a really good driver, or hey, I need to improve on a few pieces. And that's one of the reasons is it's supposed to show you how to improve your driving habit. That way, if you are really good at braking, acceleration, you're not going long miles, things like that, you're probably going to be a really good fit. The other positive is it works really well for a lot of different people. So if you have the low mileage, if you have a really good smooth ride in your vehicle and you're not constantly hitting bumps and it's not hard cornering and your vehicle's a really good overall fit, then you're going to get those better deals that you wanted to have in the first place. Now, some of the trade-offs that we're going to see is that some people have actually stated that they're called the tiny savings is what is being reported, that only a few dollars savings at the renewal. It's partially because you got that 10% off. And if you land on an average of 12, maybe 15%, you're only getting 2 to 5% more of what you've already gotten. So yes, you do get another discount that's at that renewal, but you don't necessarily see as large of an impact as you thought. So you see, hey, I got 20% off. It's not 20 additional, it's you've already gotten 10, you're gonna get 10 more. The other con is, let's be honest, traffic's traffic. You're sometimes stop and go is going to impact it. So once you're doing this process, this 90 days to 6 months process, and if you have events where you do have to stop fast, a deer jumps out and you got to slam on the brakes, they technically say they consider that, and it's like you have a couple occurrences that you could have, but it's still going to impact it. And at the end of the day, if that is something, you're going to essentially feel like you didn't get the right go ahead and it wasn't the right process that you were going to take. The other con is your phone handling sensitivity. So this is based on your phone. It's the phone's movement. And yes, the better the phone, the better the movement, I guess. They're all pretty commonly good. But if you have a really sensitive phone, then that's not going to work very well. On top of it, you're doing what's called, I call a privacy trade-off. You're giving away your location, your trip data, they're watching your speeding, your mileage, stuff like that. And even though we'll talk about the terms and condition, there's some pieces that I don't like, but I don't know if it's a game changer, whether it's a hard no for me. It's something that you have to decide whether it's worth it or not. The last is if you're not tech friendly. Usually I find that if you're an older person that doesn't understand the tech and you just really hate your phone, at the end of that process, you're going to be even more frustrated because especially if you have an older phone, it will drain the battery on older phones, not a ton. But if you notice you have your navigation running, that's usually the data that it's using. And for those older phones that are using like apps and navigations, it can drain it a little bit more than you wanted. And so it's going to be a little bit frustrating on the drain of your actual device. So what are we talking about? Terms and privacy. What are we going to watch out for? What information are they actually collecting? So the data that they're collecting is called a participation. It's essentially a continuous location access, just like your navigation. They're using that through the Bluetooth and that little device in your car. And then it's background processing. So that does record the trips and it needs to do it as accurate as possible. So that app is going to run in the background. It's going to know when you're not actually moving at speeds a car would do. So it's not necessarily going to take a lot of power or data while you're walking around and moving around. But then again, you always have to just wonder, is the big brother on me right now, whether I'm going to the jewelry store or going to the gas station if I'm not driving? And it doesn't technically say that it does track that. It's more just when it sees that the car is actually active. That's also the reason they have the beacon, because when you get close to it, it knows now is the time to track their driving. The big question is, what is the information being shared from State Farm? And they do not sell your information. That's one of the common things that almost everybody I read when we do reviews on these other companies, when we're looking at Nationwide and we're looking at Safeco and we're looking at Progressive, Snapshot, and all those things, no one really uses the information outside of their own company. The only tricky part is there's a lot of companies inside their company that do have access to the data. Now, whether they use it or not, they don't necessarily say, but I kind of wonder down the road for if they wanted to share the data, if they just wouldn't share your information. It would just be the collective data overall. Yes, they're going to help build their rates and their rating system based on that data, but what companies in their wheelhouse are they going to be sharing this to? Again, I know I talked about it in the beginning, but if these 4 things apply to you, it makes sense to check with the independent agent, because then it's on top of just having the sharing of the information. I honestly do like the device as far as a device in general, because most of the time your day is already given to like Facebook and all these other apps and programs, so you're usually giving up the data either way. But if your discount is small on that full renewal cycle, so you've gone 6 months and the renewal wasn't very large, then you may want to talk to that agent. If you don't like tracking and then you're still not liking the price that you're paying, because in some areas the rates have increased quite a bit, there are a lot of companies that have reduced rates that you may have had a better discount with without the device. And then if you do drive high mileage or if you're in heavy traffic, the device is not going to be a good fit for you. If the pricing is the issue and you want to work with an agent that you can trust, then yes, you're going to want to go to one of those independent agents or find a friend that you know. If you have someone that can get you a really good deal, there's another option for you. If your rate is increasing and State Farm is no longer competitive in your state, this can happen. They start at low prices and they may creep up over time. If you've been 3 to 5 years with an agency and it's time to look at another option, I personally think if you trust the agent that you're with, you should talk to them first. Find out if there is any better discounts that you're missing. If there's another way they can get the policy better, maybe you do want to try the device. Work with the people you can trust first. If that's not the case, not that you can't trust an independent agent, but you've already got one that you can trust. Make sure that their coverages are doing good things for you, making sure that all the discounts are good for you. Make sure that you're not being taken advantage of. They're not chopping off the pieces of your policy to make it cheaper. They're actually saying, hey, we need to have a conversation. You should be carrying X, Y, and Z because of maybe your income or your car or your risk area. All those things should be something that your agent should be discussing with you, not just how cheap can we get your policy. Because at the end of the process, if you want cheap, they'll give you cheap. But if you're looking for a company that's protecting you in case you do have a claim and you're not going to get sued for all the different reasons that can happen, you want to make sure that's the first piece that you look at. The next, if you don't have that scenario, then yes, you do need to talk to the independent agent, and that's going to be the best route for you. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. If you've used the Drive Safe and Save device and did it give you a good discount, let people know this was a great deal. It was amazing. I got this much off. Or was it something you did and you didn't like it? You just had to disconnect it, or it just started rating your braking too hard, or it said that you were speeding and whatnot. The only fear that I personally have is they technically in the terms say there are some legal things that they have to give out so they can share the data if it's for legal purposes. So if you're speeding and there's a high-speed accident and the police do some sort of legal request on that, then at that point there's a possibility that your data may be shared in those scenarios. So where you may have not been determined at fault in a claim, it may determine fault if it's a legal requirement. Something to think about. Otherwise, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. If you are shopping, again, link in the description below. If you want my overall opinion of State Farm, we just did a review on them here. Otherwise, I'm Mark with Think Insurance. I'll see you in the next one.